Piano lessons can be murder. The 13th book in the series finds a boy named Jeremy finding a piano in the attic of his family's new home. This is no ordinary piano, as Jeremy soon learns. Every night thereafter, he hears the sound of soft, melancholy music coming from the attic. You know, the kind of music only ghosts play to lure the unwary to their doom, which Jeremy is only too happy to oblige. His parents misconstrue this as genuine interest in the instrument, and they hire a piano teacher for the boy. This teacher has a high resemblance to Santa Claus, runs a piano teaching school called Shriek School. Get it? 'Cause it's foreboding? I found this a little heavy-handed, but this is the sort of thing this series is known for. The teacher also can't stop looking hungrily at Jeremy's hands and calling them excellent, like To Catch a Predator is his favorite show or something. Anyway, the teacher invites him back to the Shriek School for advanced lessons, where Jeremy is confronted with a custom floor sweeper that brings to mind the Ed 209 from RoboCop. Turns out it's the invention of the school janitor who has a knack for electronics. More on that later. So after several more visits and meeting the ghost that haunts the piano at his home, Jeremy decides to quit the school, but his parents force him to do it mano a mano. Doing so, Jeremy tries to leave, but the teacher won't let him, chasing him into the recital room where he finds dozens of pianos being played by severed hands. Remember the teacher's creepy comment? Turns out he isn't a pedo after all, but a collector of hands. Well, not him, because it turns out he's a robot. Yeah. The whole school is the work of the janitor, who wishes to hear beautiful music but feels it is marred by the imperfections of human hands. So he collects these hands and runs a computer program through them to erase human error. There are just too many questions I had concerning this ending that I can't list them all, so I'll simply say that this book was one big mindfuck. The Werewolf of Fever's Swamp. This book is your classic werewolf tale. The main character, Grady, and his family recently moved to Florida so his scientist parents can conduct research on deer. They live right next to a swamp, which is problematic as it is home to a particularly creepy urban legend. Apparently 100 years before the time of the story, everyone in town came down with a strange fever which claimed many lives. The survivors of this illness began acting strangely, talking nonsense, and having trouble walking. This led to the swamp being dubbed Fever Swamp. Fever Swamp also seems to be the source of all the strange howling Grady begins hearing at night. Grady eventually meets two kids, Will and Cassie. Cassie says the howling is a werewolf that roams the swamp, and that the local swamp hermit is the mythical creature. Soon after, the deer that Grady's father had been studying are found slaughtered, other people's pets turn up missing, and a local resident has disappeared. A dog that Grady had recently adopted is blamed for the deer by his dad. Determined to prove the dog's innocence, Grady follows the dog out into the swamp one night. He of course loses him, but is joined by his friend Will. Did I mention it's a full moon the night Grady goes out into the forest? Will vanishes and Grady is soon face to face with the werewolf. Looking into the beast's eyes as its teeth rip into his shoulder, Grady recognizes Will. But that isn't even the crazy part. At the end, we witness Grady going off into the forest transformed into a werewolf, hunting with his new dog. There isn't a lot to say about this one. Nothing terribly original, and even the twists weren't too surprising. If you wanted to pass on this one, I couldn't blame you. But oh, does it get worse with the next one. You Can't Scare Me. This book sucks. Why? The vast majority of the book centers on Eddie and his friends trying to scare a girl named Courtney. Courtney is stuck up and arrogant and seems to take pleasure in making Eddie and company look like dorks. One incident found Eddie too afraid to climb a tree and rescue a neighbor's cat. Right before the fire department is called in, Courtney shows up and retrieves the animal. With the cat in hand, this neighbor looks down at Eddie and says, "I'm glad someone in this neighborhood is brave," making a disgusted face. What kind of comment is that? Especially to a kid. Why don't you get the cat yourself, asshole? Anyway, Eddie and friends try to scare Courtney again and again and again. They never stop trying, even after everything they attempt comedically backfires. They eventually hatch a plan to lure Courtney out into the woods where she is supposed to be attacked by mud monsters, beings that live under the muddy banks of the creek. These monsters are actually Eddie's brother and his friends dressed up as the creatures, but predictably the monsters that come after Courtney are the real deal. Sure, she gets scared, but when everyone else is running for their lives, it doesn't matter. Oh, and that whole climax lasted 2 pages. 2 fucking pages. And the book ends with Eddie admitting defeat. This book sucks.